Hey guys, how's it going? Couple of quick things before we get into today's lesson. I have uploaded the Turnitin submissions where you can submit your essays for the bronze boat, your final copy. That was up, I believe, last Friday. So I'll tell you how that's going to be graded so you can have that in mind as you're submitting and getting your final copy ready. It's going to be 60% on argument and structure. So the overall argument of your essay, how consistent it is, how well you stay on topic, how you've structured it. Do you have a clear 3-point thesis? Do you have topic sentences that follow from that thesis? Do you restate your thesis in the conclusion? Is everything on topic? Does everything work to support those overall arguments? Are you consistent with it? Do you hit length? Those sorts of things. Do you have 5 full paragraphs? Are your sentences short and choppy, or are you giving me enough detail to really support your argument? That's 60% of the paper. 20%, I'm focusing on this more heavily this time than I will most of the time, is going to be on your citations. This is going to be your works cited page, which should be easy. Most of you had that really close to correct, if not 100% correct on the rough draft, and I showed you how to correct it if you didn't. But 20% of the grade is going to be based on that and the in-text citations, which I want 3 of. I want them formatted correctly. I've corrected those if you didn't. Now, if they are not incorporated into your paper, if they don't support your argument, if they aren't really flowing with the argument, if you just put a quote in by itself just to hit that amount, it's not going to get you a lot of points. I need that citation to really support and flow with your argument and be part of your essay in a way that makes sense. Okay, so that's another 20%. That's 80% of the paper right there between your argument, your structure, your citations. Focus on those things. 10% grammar and spelling. That should be pretty straightforward. I'm not too concerned with that at this point with a typed up essay that's going through Turnitin that I've already looked at in the rough form. So it should be pretty good on that count, I would think. Most people shouldn't lose many points there. And then 10% on MLA formatting, which was good on the rough drafts. Most of you are getting pretty comfortable with it. It's not complicated. And again, I'm not super concerned with it at this point because I think we've kind of gotten the hang of that. So 60% argument and structure, 20% citations, 10 for grammar and spelling, 10 for MLA formatting. I will type that up with the post when I post this video on Google Classroom so you can look at it and look back. But just keep that in mind so that you know kind of what to focus on if you're crunched for time and you're trying to make your essay earn as many points as possible. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk a little bit about vocab for Unit 10. Choosing the right word for Unit 10 is up on Google Classroom. Like I said, we're going to move really quickly with vocab. Try to get that done for me today. It's due by midnight tonight. 25 questions, same ones from your book, multiple choice. Should be pretty simple, pretty quick exercise. I'm going to talk about the first 5 words for Unit 10 today. Instead of doing 10 at a time, I'm probably going to do 5 at a time most days. Some days I'll do 10 so that I've got time to get other important information into the video. So with that said, I'll go with the first word first, obviously. First word is abominable. So something that's abominable, you may think of like the abominable snowman if you've seen any of the old claymation Rudolph Christmas specials and things like that. It's something that's hateful, something disgusting, something terrible. Abominable, it sounds like awful, terrible, horrible. It's basically that same thing: horrible, terrible, awful. Any of those things are synonyms for it. It's an adjective. You could say the abominable snowman scared us when we were camping in the mountains or something like that. You could say the stormy weather was abominable and we couldn't go outside. You could say this abominable coronavirus has me stuck inside 24/7 and I'm going insane. Anything like that would work. It's a pretty easy word to use despite being kind of long. Word 2 is bumbling. So you might think of like a bumblebee and how they kind of do this when they move around. It's not exactly like that. When you describe something or someone as bumbling, they've kind of got that motion. They're kind of clumsy and awkward, kind of staggering about. A bumbling person is someone who's really clumsy, who maybe drops things a lot. So if you see a kid walking down the hallway and he's dropping books left and right and he's bumping into people and he trips over his own feet, that kid's bumbling. You might describe him as bumbling. This can be used as an adjective. It can be used as a noun. You could say your bumbling has gotten you into trouble a lot of different times. That's using it as a noun, like you're bumbling, the act of bumbling around. It can be used as a verb. Your book does not list it as a possible verb, but it can be. You could say I bumbled into my brother and knocked his drink out of his hand and my mom yelled at me, something like that. I'd be fine with you using it as a verb. I think that's a totally correct usage. Word 3 is consequence. Consequence is a word you should be familiar with. So a consequence is a result of something, usually in a negative sense. So if you do something bad, there will be consequences. If you don't do your work, the consequence is a 0. If you knock your brother's drink out of his hand, your consequence might be being yelled at by your mother. Pretty simple word, one you've probably seen a lot of times before. Use it as a noun. You could say something as simple as actions have consequences. That's a correct usage. It gives me context. Word 4 is delude. So to delude someone is to fool them, to trick them. This is a verb. So you might say, we were deluded into believing that he was a millionaire when in fact he was poor and just had one set of fancy clothes that he wore all the time. You could say he deluded me into thinking he was going to give me money if I made all A's, but he didn't. So it's to trick someone. It's to make someone believe something that's false, to delude them. Word 5 is dole. So dole can be a verb or a noun. To dole out like a verb is to hand out something, usually in small amounts. So I might say I doled out candy to the class when they got correct answers. I'm not doing that. You guys would go insane. Here, I'm throwing you candy through the screen. But you could say I doled out candy to the class when they got answers correct. You could say I gave out a dole of candy to the class. That's using it as a noun. It's like a small amount of something. Or you could say the government gave out a dole of money to help people through the coronavirus, which the paychecks they're sending out are kind of like that. They're a little bit more substantial than just a dole. But you could say they gave out a dole of money to help people get by while they were jobless, while they couldn't work. Either one is fine with me. I think it's a little bit easier to use as a verb, like he doled out money to the poor, or he doled out food at the soup kitchen, something like that. I think that's a lot easier usage, but if you want to use it as a noun, feel free. If you have any questions about those first 5 words, let me know. I'll answer any questions you post online, whatever, email them to me, anything like that. If you have any issues with choosing the right word, let me know. This one, obviously, you don't have to type out the word and spell it out, so we shouldn't have any issues on that front. Going forward, especially with this unit, start being really careful of your spelling and autocorrect on your phones and all that. Double check, make sure the word is what you meant for it to be. These exercises are not very long. Be careful with them, because it takes a lot of time to go back through and check each and every one where someone missed. Because what I'm doing right now is, if someone doesn't make 100, I go back and I look at every single one of their responses. And if it's just misspelled by a letter, or if you put an ed or an ing and I didn't account for that, anything like that, or if it looks like it's a typo, or an autocorrect, I go back and I give you credit. I'm not doing that forever because that is a pain, okay? And at this point, like I said, you should be focused on spelling those words correctly, so do that in the future. All right, that's it for vocab for today. So I'm going to talk about Shurley Chapter 9, Lesson 2. If you want to flip there and look at it, you can. You don't have to right now. I'm not going to go over those practice sentences. I am going to put up a Shurley exercise later today. It'll be something pretty simple, but it'll be based on Chapter 9, Lesson 1 with indirect objects and pattern 3 sentences. I'm probably going to give you about 5 sentences, varying degrees of complexity, and I'm going to say, what is the indirect object in this sentence? And you'll have a little fill-in-the-blank answer. Answer it, you'll get credit. Again, spell the word correctly. You will have it literally right there in the question to look at. If you spell these incorrectly, I'm not giving you credit. I'm sorry. So again, it'll just be about 5 questions. I'll type out a sentence. It'll have an indirect object somewhere in it. It might have a compound indirect object. And I'll say, what is the indirect object in this sentence? Type it in the blank. That's it. Chapter 9, Lesson 2 deals a little bit more with indirect objects and pattern 3 sentences, but the main new content that it gives us is quotation marks. Quotation marks can be difficult. They can be tricky. The most common usage of them, because there are several uses, is to denote dialogue, to set off dialogue when someone's talking. Okay, so if I say, Johnny said, I'm going to the movies later. I'm going to the movies later, what he actually said when he was speaking has quotation marks around. You can't see that, quotation marks around it. The 2 little floaty comma looking things are apostrophes. So you use those to denote dialogue usually, and that's what we're going to talk about today, because there are several different ways you can do that. So I'm going to try to turn my phone around because it won't let me flip the camera while I'm videoing. I hope this shows up pretty well, but I'll talk you through it whether it does or not. So hopefully you can see my computer screen there. The first example, I don't know, but I'll find out, John said. So all of this is being spoken by John. It's all in quotation marks. There's a comma before the final quotation mark. Then we have our dialogue tag. The dialogue tag is the John said or Carol shouted or anything like that, and then a period. So here we have the dialogue tag at the beginning and the dialogue after it. So John said, comma. So again, the comma is always going to come before the quotation marks, whether at the beginning or at the end. I don't know, but I'll find out. So we have what he actually said, period, inside the quotation marks. Then we have a split quote. I don't know, John said, but I'll find out. This is still the same sentence he spoke. Sometimes when writers want to create a pause in the dialogue for effect or something, like if this was a really important pause, they might put the dialogue tag in the middle of the sentence. I don't know, comma, then the quotation marks. John said, comma, then the quotation marks, but I'll find out, period. So these are all three basically the same sentence. They're read a little bit differently. They have a little bit different pacing. One, you have the dialogue tag at the end, one at the beginning, one in the middle. All the same sentence, but three different ways of punctuating a similar or the same sentence. So go look at those. I will probably give you some sentences tomorrow as an exercise, something short, kind of like what I'm going to do today, where I have you punctuate a sentence on your own. I have you put the quotation marks in where they should be, or I might have you type out some sentences using dialogue. I haven't exactly decided how I'm going to do it yet. It'll be something pretty simple and quick. If you have any questions about where quotation marks go or how you use them, you can ask me. A lot of you are probably thinking you can use them around titles of things and stuff like that. Yes, you absolutely can. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, so don't freak out yet. Hopefully you can see that pretty well. If not, I'll post those three sentences when I post this video, and you can look at them there. It should be pretty self-explanatory though. Quotation marks don't have to be difficult. They can be if you get freaked out and don't remember the rules. Punctuation pretty much always comes before the quotation mark. But do choose the right word tonight. Get your papers done for the bronze bow. If you have any questions on anything, those first 5 words, quotation marks, indirect objects, the essay, anything like that, just let me know. Good luck. See you guys.